Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Planet X News. This is Scott from the Nibiru channel. It is October 11th, 2017. And ladies and gentlemen, late this morning, we are joined today with Dr. Claudia Albers. Dr. Albers, how are you this morning?
I'm very well. Thank you, Scott. And how are you?
Not doing too bad, under the state of affairs that this country and this planet is under. Things could be better. But
Yeah.
ladies and gentlemen, we wanted to bring you a special report that Dr. Albers wrote yesterday. And over the course of the last couple of days, I've actually stumbled onto some pretty critical information that is dealing with the pole shift, or the shifting or the wobbling of our planet. And I know a lot of other YouTube channels and videos have been out there for quite some time talking about the pole shift, crustal pole shift, magnetic pole shift. The fact of the matter is, folks, the information and the evidence that I uncovered over the course of the last couple of days and the research that Dr. Albers has completed is probably going to blow your freaking mind. Now, I've been investigating Planet X for many, many years. I'm definitely not a stranger to this subject. But before we get into all of the evidence pertaining to this pole shift and this very severe wobble that our planet is in, I want to talk about a few things very quickly. Number one, what is happening in Las Vegas? We all understand that this is definitely a deep state false flag. I noticed over the course of the past week, that's all that you see on mainstream media. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. There's been a lot of censoring on the matter, a lot of conspiracy theories, and I've only touched the subject a few times. And very early on, I knew that the entire situation was basically a complete psychological operation. However, people actually did lose their lives. The gunfire was real. The bullets were real. The injuries and the deaths, they were real. So the deep state has basically stepped up their game. And ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot of things that the majority of you don't really know about Las Vegas. And I mean just the city in general. I'm not talking about or referring to the shooting. A lot of you don't know that there is a high-speed underground railway that leads directly from the city of Las Vegas directly to Area 51. That's been in place for a very long time. So I really don't want to get into all of this information, because they'll flag this video and, they can possibly shut down my YouTube channel. They've been doing a lot of that lately. But I want to touch on this one point. The man that they're accusing of doing all of this, a lot of people think that he was a patsy. But in all actuality, ladies and gentlemen, this man was an employee of Lockheed Martin. He had some mid-level ties with the deep state. It's proven. It's a fact. Was he set up? Probably. But folks, right now, enough is enough. Each and every one of you that are following that story and it's bending your mind, literally bending your mind, and also wasting your time. You are now falling victim to mind control. And that is exactly what is happening. There was a lot of information that I received 24, 48, and 72 hours after that incident that I have never even disclosed, and I'm really not sure if I even want to. I'm under enough pressure as it is, dealing with the subject matter of what is happening in our solar system and what is happening to our planet. My advice to each and every one of you is to get back on board. Stop following the mainstream media. Stop following this conspiracy theory, because it's not going to get you anywhere. It's going to frustrate you. And again, you are literally falling victim to mind control, and that is the definition of psychological warfare. We know that. Now, if you've noticed, after 1 week of pounding this story down your throats, they immediately change to Hollywood and this Harry Weinstein sex scandal. Now that's all you're seeing. But in the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, the state of California is erupting in fires. Earthquakes are out of control. If any of you are not paying attention to what is happening, you better get off of the Las Vegas crap and get on to what is happening to this planet, because the diversionary tactic is already set in place. The fires in California are highly suspect. And when I mean highly suspect, I mean highly suspect. Over the course of the last couple of days, we've had a ton of very large earthquakes. The earthquakes are swarming through the entire state of California, Nevada, Idaho, Utah, Washington, Montana. We're not talking about little earthquakes. We're talking about much larger earthquakes. They're stretching across the United States, ladies and gentlemen. They're stretching all the way down into Mexico, as I have shown many of you time and time again. Just over the course of the last few hours, there was a massive, deep earthquake in the Fiji Islands, once again, totaling 593 kilometers deep. Now, doctor, an earthquake that deep, in miles, how many miles is that 593 kilometers?
It's about 800 miles, I think, Scott. Yeah, it's very deep. It's deep within the mantle.
So you would consider that to be a pretty critical earthquake, even regardless of the magnitude.
Yes, of course. It's a very, very deep earthquake, and these deep earthquakes would do damage to the mantle, and then that damage would spread upwards and across from the mantle sideways as well. So it's sure to lead to more earthquakes.
Yeah, that's going to be stretching directly across to the west coast of South America, and potentially up into the west coast of Mexico and the United States, California.
That's right.
So, folks, my point is, okay, we have to get back on point. I'm just going to come out and divulge the information that I got 24 hours after this supposed incident. I have a longtime subscriber that has been with me, probably over a year. And many of you have seen the airport that is across from that hotel. And they were talking about the fuel tanks. The email that I got 24 hours after this incident was from one of my subscribers, and he has shared numerous pictures with me as he worked at night at the airport. And he works in the pinkish colored buildings that are very, very close to those fuel tanks. He actually works with very, very small commuter airplanes, the small Lear jets, the private jets. If you go on to Google Earth and zoom in, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. The email that he sent me, and he asked me not to disclose his name or any of his information, and I was going to put up the email and just show it to you, but I don't even want to do that. I don't even want to get myself into any type of trouble. But he told me that in the month before this incident, he was working a night shift there, and he's an aeronautics mechanic, maintenance mechanic. And he stated that over the course of the last month, there was a group of 6 individuals that would meet at one of the small hangars in those pinkish colored buildings. And they would come in a black Suburban. He was working in an airplane hangar directly across from them. He was doing interior work, as he always does. And he actually had a complete visual on these individuals every single night for 30 straight days. He said they were all kind of dressed the same. They all looked kind of military looking. And you can clearly see that they were going over plans. So each night he kind of watched them a little bit, but, you know, he also did his own work. He stated that on the night of this incident, they came in 1 hour before everything went down. 30 minutes later, a small black helicopter landed right in the center between the buildings, and 2 of the men got in the black helicopter and it lifted off. He overheard them stating that they only had 15 minutes before news helicopters would be in the air. The other gentlemen that were there kind of disappeared on foot. And then all hell breaks loose. And exactly 15 minutes later, the black helicopter lands right where it took off from. 2 individuals get out. They get in a black Suburban. They drive off. So the fact of the matter is, folks, you know, we will never, ever know the full truth about what happened on that painful day. But we have to realize that it was a psyop. It was meant to grab your attention, divert your attention, and that is exactly what it has done. Now there are millions of people around the world that are all conspiracy theorists, and they're wasting their time. They're wasting their time. We know what went down, and there's nothing we can do about it. We have to center our attention on what is really, really happening to our planet right now. And the information that was discovered over the last couple of days and the report that Dr. Albers wrote is probably going to shake you to the core a little bit. And we're going to get right into it. Now, I'm going to share my screen here, and I want all of you to follow me very carefully here. I'm going to bring up, this is my video program that I use to make some videos. And what you're about to see, ladies and gentlemen, is a space satellite called EPIC. And Doctor, do you want to explain to everybody where this satellite spacecraft is located?
Yes, I can do that, Scott. It's between it's at the L1 position, and the L1 position is directly between the Earth and the Sun, and it's what's called a point of equilibrium, where the forces from the Sun and from the Earth are perfectly balanced. So the spacecraft always stays exactly between the Earth and the Sun. So it has its own orbit around the Sun, but because the Earth has its orbit around the Sun, it always moves in step with the Earth, so that it's always between the Earth and the Sun. So whatever view we get from the spacecraft, say if it was pointed at the Sun, would be the same as what we view from the Earth, except a little closer. And then, but now the spacecraft has pointed its camera at the Earth. So it's facing, at the back of it is the Sun, and it's pointing towards the Earth. And we are seeing the Earth through its camera as it rotates on its daily rotation.
So this camera on this spacecraft sits directly between the Earth and the Sun at all times with a view of the Earth.
That's absolutely correct.
Okay. Now, listen, folks, you know, I got my hands on some of this video footage, and, you know, I don't know if, I don't know if NASA did this on purpose, or they're just that damn stupid, or I'm sure they understand what's happening. So I'm going to play this video. I had to slow it down because in the NASA version, they had it going so fast that the Earth just looked like a spinning blue and white ball, and you really couldn't tell or see any detail. So what we're getting into here right now is Dr. Albers and I are going to show you beyond a shadow of a doubt that the Earth has already shifted. It is shifting very, very badly. And this can account for the massive weather anomalies, the disappearance and the recession of water from certain areas. This is also going to contribute to the earthquake and the volcanic activity. But ladies and gentlemen, what I'm trying to tell you is this is a very serious situation, because what you're going to see is going to freak you out. But just try to maintain your composure and just watch. And please understand, try to understand what you're seeing. Now, before I even get into this, you're going to see the Earth rotating 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for a period of 1 year. Okay, now this is how far this is going back. This is going back from July of 2015 to August of 2016. Now, I haven't put together the footage for the first 10 months of this year. I'm actually afraid to. But what you're going to see that occurred over the course of the last year is just enough to bend your mind. It is truly mind-bending. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to start playing this video. And we're going to watch it. And I had to slow this down, folks, because the way that they had it set up, it would just spin so rapidly that you really couldn't tell what was actually happening. So if you just have a little patience, you'll start to see what is occurring. Now, you are actually looking at the Earth from the view of the EPIC satellite, the spacecraft EPIC. A lot of us have never heard of it. I never heard of it until a few days ago. And when I did, and I found out where this satellite craft was, then I started investigating. Now, I'm going to stop this for just one moment, folks. Okay. I want you to, I'm just going to try to go ahead here. This is kind of hard to operate on this piece of video. Now, let me get to it. What I want you to concentrate on, folks, I want you to concentrate on the continent of Africa, because it's the largest landmass in this video that we're going to use, no pun intended, but as a landmarker. I want you to pay super close attention to the continent of Africa. Now, taking into consideration the Earth's tilt according to the seasons, we know that, we understand that, we have already calculated it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So when you see the Earth tilting and you see land masses suddenly moving northward, I don't want people to start saying, oh, that's just the Earth's tilt for the seasons, the seasonal change. Folks, we understand that. We've already calculated that. And what you're about to see is not the seasons changing. It's not. I'm going to go ahead and let this play.
Yes, I think we will see that the angle where the equator is changes by more than 23.5 degrees, which is what we would expect with the seasons.
Exactly. Now, folks, we are into August of 2015. If you pay attention to the lower right-hand corner of your screen, as the months go by, you will see that month and that year. Again, pay very close attention to the continent of Africa. Watch where it goes. Now, I always knew that we had a very severe earth wobble that was occurring. I struggled for a very long time trying to figure out how I was going to prove this. I even tried getting old GPS coordinates.
Yeah.
For the small town. I'm sorry, doctor, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I just saw the Earth come down and then up again when it's just supposed to come down, you see.
Okay, I'll go ahead and back it up. But
yeah,
I'll leave it right here. So, folks, again, pay attention to the continent of Africa. But I had tried last year to get the actual coordinates of the small town in Ecuador where the equator goes directly through. I tried to get old coordinates from where it was and then where it was today. I couldn't get the information because that, to me, I would be able to prove that the Earth was moving in some direction. And I didn't know whether it was moving up, down, sideways, cockeyed, whatever. So I failed at that point until now. So real quick, let's take a look right where the continent of Africa is.
Yes, and don't forget to see September. So in September, the view from the satellite, the equator would be in the middle. You know, that so the zero tilt, as far as the satellite is concerned, in the middle of the Earth would be 0.
Exactly.
Although the satellite views it slightly above the equator, we would be able to tell where the equator is. And it's also where the sun's reflection is.
So if you start watching this, ladies and gentlemen, I mean, I could slow it down even more. Matter of fact, I might just have to do that. We might just have to slow it down even more. Yeah, I think this is the speed that I had it yesterday.
Okay.
So, ladies and gentlemen, if you just pay attention to Africa, that's the biggest landmass, and you are going to see it rise almost to the top of the Earth.
Yeah.
Go ahead, doctor.
Yeah, you just notice where the equator is right through the middle of Africa, and we can see where the sun is, so we know where the equator is as well, because the reflection of the sun in the middle tells you where it is.
Exactly. Now, as you go through this video, folks, remember, this is a whole entire year from July of 2015 to August of 2016. Okay? And we're wondering why our weather systems are so crazy. We're wondering why certain areas of the Earth had massively extreme high temperatures, while other areas on the planet had colder temperatures, unseasonably cold, unseasonably warm. Well, how would that occur? Why would that occur? If you take a look at the positioning of the continents, you're watching them float upwards towards the North Pole.
That's right. And sometimes what is strange, actually, is that you can actually see the wobble. It's not always easy to see, but you see 1 month it goes up, and the next month it comes down, and then the next month it goes up, when it's supposed to keep on going down, you see?
Okay. Now here we are, real quick. Yes. We're here in November 2015. So we've gone through July, August, September, October, and here we are in November.
Yes.
Now, compensating for the tilt of the Earth and the change of the seasons, folks, take a look at how far Africa is moving towards the north, up here. You can see almost, I would say half of the Antarctica exposed right here at the bottom.
That's
now,
right.
Remember, this spacecraft is a few degrees above the equator. Just a few degrees. I think what is it, Doctor? 2-3 degrees or something?
Yeah, it's the sun. There's only a difference of about 2 degrees between every image, but it's usually 10 degrees above what would be the equator.
So what we're actually seeing, Doctor, we are actually seeing we're seeing this planet shift horribly.
Yes.
To the north.
That's right. Don't forget, we are supposed to see a shift of 23.5 degrees. But when I watch this, you see it goes up much further than that. I would see a shift of an additional 10 to 20 degrees above the 23.5 we're supposed to see.
So that would put us at roughly over 40 degrees.
That's right.
Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. You can keep your eye on the Antarctic at the bottom, but my suggestion is to take a look at all of the continents and see how far up they are going. Look at Africa right now. Look at the United States. The United States has basically disappeared.
Yeah.
You can't even see it. That's how far north it is. Look where Africa is ending up.
It goes up, and then it goes too far up, and then it comes too far down as well. So you can see it's not just a constant shift, it's a wobble.
Exactly. Now, listen, folks, remember last year, I don't know if any of you do remember, but the country of Australia, they had absolutely numbing heat. I mean, they were under heat watches for temperatures almost their entire summer. This is their summer. This is November. Look where their country is.
Yeah. It's almost at the equator.
Exactly. And how could it be at the equator when the nickname of the country is down under?
Exactly.
You know, I mean, wow.
Yeah, that's right. You can see where the reflection of the sun is, and you can see Australia was almost there. That's the equator.
Let's take a look at Africa. Again, this is November 2015, going into 2016. Now you can see almost all of the Antarctic. And ladies and gentlemen, I mean, aren't we wondering why the ice is melting in the Antarctic over the course of the last couple of years? This is why. It's being exposed to direct, heavy, ultraviolet light and additional heat. Look at where Africa is. Look.
Yeah.
If this isn't a planet shifting, I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
For those people out there that are saying the pole shift, the pole shift is imminent, the pole shift is coming. Folks, it's already here. It's already happening. Let me ask you something, ladies and gentlemen, everybody out there in YouTube TV land. How many of you have been wondering or experiencing very short days and sometimes days that just seem to drag on forever?
Mm-hmm.
How many of you have had this feeling of lost time or time standing still? You know, me and the doctor have had this experience almost a dozen times over the course of the last several months. We've even said it to each other. Wow, where did this day go? Whoa, wait a minute. Wow, this day's really dragging on. It's where, you know, it seems like, you know, hours and hours have gone by, and you look at your watch and only an hour went by.
Mm-hmm.
You know, folks, we depend on looking at our cell phones to view the time. We don't really have a very good perception of time. But what you're seeing here was probably the beginning phases of this very severe shift. And, you know, I'm not even sure if I want to refer to this as a pole shift, because in actuality, it's really not a pole shift. Our planet is being pulled in another direction. Doctor, do you want to explain a little bit about how the poles would react to another magnetic field?
Yes, I can do that. So it's actually aligning itself. Our magnetic poles are set by the core of the Earth. And instead of aligning with the sun, they're aligning with another object. So that changes where they actually go. They actually then move to another position on the surface of the Earth. So because that happens because of the effect, the magnetic effect of another body, which is creating induced currents in the Earth. So the magnetic poles is shifting, and it shifts, or the north we know is shifting towards Siberia. And that's a well-known fact. But what the Earth is doing at the moment is it's moving itself so that it aligns the new position of the pole in the old position. So that's why the Earth is shifting, so that whatever position the new pole is, which is now in Siberia, moves to where the pole was before. It was initially in North Canada. So that causes the Earth to tilt, so that it places the pole in the correct position in space. And that's what I figured out must be happening, at least for now. So that's what's causing the Earth to shift. It's not like the North Pole moves so that it's closer to the equator. No, 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 no. The pole is aligning itself in the old position in space, and that causes the whole Earth to shift. And I think that what will happen eventually is, because of these induced currents, the interior of the Earth is heating up. And so, and the outer core is a liquid, but it's a viscous, that is, it's a thick liquid. And so the inner core and the mantle are connected through this thick liquid. It provides a lot of friction. Eventually, though, as this outer core heats up, eventually it will melt more and more and become more and more liquid, a thinner liquid. And that will cause the inner core and the outer core to lose contact. And then it means that the crust will resist the motion that it's having now. And it will slide over the core and end up in a totally different position.
Exactly.
And that will be the sudden pole shift.
Now, we're talking about a crustal shift here, folks.
That's right.
You know, we're not talking about North Pole, South Pole, magnetic pole shifts. We're talking about the real deal here. Yeah. We're talking about a crustal pole shift. And last year, I did several videos on this. I was searching and searching and searching for scientific evidence of this. And, you know, I mean, I just came up with some theories and some models, and now we have actual space satellite video of our planet over the course of a year. And look what has happened. Now, we're looking at the continent of Africa. We are in the middle of December of 2015. When in your lifetime have you ever seen the continent of Africa almost up into where Europe would be? Mm-hmm. Because what you're looking at, well, that's basically it.
Yeah.
How would it start to snow in Saudi Arabia and in India? Remember these wild, crazy weather anomalies that were occurring? Now you want to know why we're having hailstorms in Spain that filled the city streets up like it snowed in New York City? Do you want to know why on the northeast coast of the United States, the day after Christmas, it was over 62 degrees Fahrenheit? Do you really want to know why the Earth is wobbling and being pulled and tugged on? You know why. You know it. And now we've uncovered the evidence. And it is clear as a bell. I don't care what anybody says. You can try to debunk this all the way to hell. So, the reason for my opening statement, you're now seeing the reason, folks. I'm trying to just get through to all of you that things are going to drastically change right in front of your eyes. And you don't have the time to get caught up in conspiracy theories. Dr. Albers, in the worst case scenario, how and when could this happen? You know, I mean, you know what question I'm getting at, because we
Yes.
talked about this yesterday.
Scott, to tell you the truth, it could happen at any moment. The Earth has had many years now of warming up. And already in the 1970s, all the planets in the solar system were warming up from the inside. And the Earth has had many, many years of warming up. And as we see more and more earthquakes happening, because don't forget, we have currents being induced inside of the Earth due to this magnetic field. And these currents produce two things. It produces the heat and it produces lightning, which generates earthquakes and leads to volcanic eruptions. So our warnings are actually earthquakes. And what I have seen in the last few days is the earthquakes suddenly increasing in such a magnitude. In other words, lots and lots of stronger earthquakes that we've ever seen and spreading throughout the world. And I think that's a warning sign. Now, I cannot say it's about to happen. It could still take a few years to happen. I cannot say. But I can tell you that it can happen at any moment. And an event like this will lead to large-scale destruction on the surface of the Earth. It will lead to tsunamis and extremely large earthquakes all over the world.
And ladies and gentlemen, let me just explain something to you real quick. And once again, I want you to get a good visual on what you're seeing, because again, we are only at the end of December of 2015. And I want you to clearly look where the continent of Africa is. I mean, it's pretty bad. I'm going to go ahead and spin this a little bit more. And let's take a look at
you
South
see
America.
Moved up even further, just within 1 or 2 rotations, you can actually see it move straight up. That's South America there.
Exactly. Now, real quick, folks, pay close attention to what I'm showing you here. I want you to take a look at this swirl. Do you see the craziness in the weather patterns? Mm-hmm. The weather patterns are reacting to the way that the Earth is turning. There, look at these diagonal, look at this. These diagonal, huge diagonal weather patterns wrapping the, look at this cyclone looking formation here. They're all emanating from the furthest points. This is absolutely intense. Mm-hmm. And Ecuador is way up here where my cursor is.
Yeah.
So ladies and gentlemen, right now, at what we're looking at, we are looking at, the estimate was approximately almost 1,200 kilometers difference, maybe even more than that. So doctor, 1,200 kilometers in miles. I don't have my converter.
That's 2,000 miles. That's about 2,000 miles, Scott. 1,200 is about 2,000, yeah.
So folks, let's get a visual on this. About 2,000 miles. So we all know the United States is what, like 3,000 miles across or something like that? Yeah. Okay, so that's 2/3 of the way across the United States. Look, you can't even see the United States. The United States is up here in freaking Canada. Mm-hmm. And then you wonder why the North Pole has such severe ice melt and critical temperatures reaching 34 degrees Fahrenheit above the melting stage. The ice is disappearing from the North Pole. There have been several reports. Scientists freaked out. Look where Central America is. Mm-hmm. It's right here.
Yeah.
Since when is Central America up where, like the Pacific Northwest of the United States and almost Canada? Mm-hmm. What geography books are you looking at? And this is only December of 2015. Let's continue with the video. Folks, look at the weather patterns. All of these vortexes swirling. Look at it. It's crazy. When I examined this video footage and I worked with it for 24 hours straight, and I said to myself, oh my God, this is it.
Yeah. You see that the weather patterns are pulling down towards the South Pole. And that shows you that there's a disruption of the orientation of the Earth due to a change in its poles. Because the weather patterns are not supposed to pull towards the South Pole. They're supposed to rotate parallel to the equator. And that shows you that the equator somehow has shifted so that these weather patterns are behaving so abnormally.
Exactly. And listen, folks, once again, what we're showing you here is not some damn video program. This is the actual video footage from the Epic spacecraft that was sent out into the L1 position between the Earth and the Sun to videotape the Earth. It doesn't move from that position. It is stabilized. You're not looking at a video program on Google Earth. You're looking at actual video in time lapse over a period of 1 year from July of 2015 to August of 2016. Now, it is January 2016, lower right-hand corner. Do you all remember the massive heat wave that rock and rolled through our friends down under who are now up top? Massive heat wave. Look where their country is positioned in January of 2016. And you wonder why they were under such extreme heat conditions. Doctor, where are they located on this shot?
Yeah, they located very close to the equator. And of course, they moved up into the kind of weather that Asia usually has, South Asia. And that's why they started experiencing the same kind of weather as Asia usually experiences.
Look at the cloud formations, the vortexes down here.
Yes.
These are all being created, and we're wondering why our jet stream is so freaking erratic that even your local meteorologist on your daily news doesn't even know what the hell is going on.
Yeah. Yeah, and that also shows a shift of the South Pole to the left and a shift of the North Pole to the right. That's what it indicates. Because you can see as you follow the pattern if you follow the weather patterns, that's what it indicates. But don't forget, it doesn't stay there. It wobbles around from one position to another. But the South Pole does not stay as the South Pole anymore. It moves. I mean, the region we usually call the South Pole, Antarctica, doesn't stay where Antarctica used to be. That's why it's warming up. And the same thing's happening with the Arctic.
Exactly. Now listen up very, very closely once again, folks. I hate to keep saying that, but I want you to pay attention to my words. People have said, oh, well, my GPS is always right. My GPS, my GPS, my GPS. Ladies and gentlemen, do you even realize or even understand how GPS works? Do you understand how many GPS satellites orbit this planet in very, very specific orbits to give you those coordinates to make your GPS work? We're dealing with electronics, we're dealing with coordinates and space. They manipulate and change and coordinate all of that so you don't lose track of where you're going. It is as simple as that, you would not even know what was happening over this course of time. You wouldn't even know. The only thing that you would really notice is the change in the weather patterns. But here's the big deal, man. Here's the real big deal. There were millions of you, millions, that were actually making observations in the sky. You were sending me your emails, 5,000 of them a week, telling me, Scott, the sun doesn't seem to be rising in the right spot. Scott, the sun looks odd. You know, I mean, this and that and this and that, you know, and I'm making the same observations. But guess what else we found, ladies and gentlemen? We also found that all of your observations were right. They were right. Because the doctor and I went back. We reviewed all of the set times for the sun to be rising and then put it next to the actual time that the sun rose. Ladies and gentlemen, there were differences from 11 minutes to 28 minutes to 39 minutes late. But in some areas, the sun rose faster. So how in the hell did that happen?
Mm-hmm.
Doctor, you want to elaborate on how that happened?
Well, it has to be caused by the Earth wobble. The sun is stationary, or the Earth is supposed to be, the Earth's position is supposed to be set with respect to the sun. But the way where we see the sun rise has to do with the actual tilt of the Earth. And if that changes, then the sun will seem to rise in a different position. So
that, isn't it?
Yeah. So your position on Earth changes basically because the Earth has wobbled in whatever direction.
And it's pretty severe, don't you think?
Oh, it is. It's quite severe. I think a lot has been done to hide it from us. The current images from this spacecraft always show the Earth upright. And always orients the image the satellite is getting so it doesn't show what's actually going on. So they have blatantly hidden whatever the Earth would actually look like, you know, by just rotating the image so the Earth always looks upright. So that's what I've noticed in the current 2017 images.
Yeah, now we're moving into February of 2016. And now the Earth is undergoing a different kind of rotation now, a different kind of wobble.
Yeah.
It's now actually causing areas that should be having extreme cold and winter weather to have, you know, a weather that was kind of moderate, while other areas are receiving extreme weather, weather that they shouldn't even be having.
That's right.
I mean, this is incredible. It's an incredible find. When you slow the spacecraft footage down, you can actually see it. Now, going into March of 2016, naturally you're moving into the spring. The Earth is reorienting itself, but it's extreme, the positioning of the continents.
Yeah.
Now look, you're seeing a solar eclipse right now that happened in March of 2016.
Yeah, here again in March, we should have the equator right in the middle. And we see the sun is shining right on the middle of the Earth. That's where the equator is now. But even then, I think now and then we see that there's a shift from almost one rotation to another.
Exactly. Now,
Yeah.
I'm going to just point something out real quick. The doctor said that you can see the sun shining on the earth. You can. You'll see this little bit of a light source right here, and it's right here at the equator. And you'll always see this little light source there because that is the sun. It could be the artificial sun, the fake sun, the sun simulator, but this light source is the equator. When did you ever know of the equator running through the the lower part of Africa?
Yeah, exactly. You can see that's not quite where the equator is supposed to be, which is supposed to be a bit higher than that. So here already we see a shift. I would say about at least 10 degrees right there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, as this continues to play, this is March of 2016. And now the Earth is once again, it's in another very, very abnormal tilt. And you can see based on these weather patterns up here, I'll even just stop it for a minute and we can take a look at this. I mean, look at the size of that weather pattern.
Mm-hmm.
It almost encompasses the entire Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah.
And then you wonder why all of the ice is melting on the North Pole. Probably part of the reason why we're seeing these recessions of water is water distribution. The water literally starting to slosh around on this planet. And, you know, and where's that going to occur? That's going to occur around the equator, around where that bulge of water is. You know, this is very alarming, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, I don't know about all of you, but this really startled me. This really had me alarmed over the last couple of days. We've been studying the footage over and over and trying to get as much information as we can. Dealing with those sunrises, the actual time when it should have rose, and then the actual time that it did. Wow. 28 minutes later?
Mm-hmm.
13 minutes later? And
Wow.
these were not times that me and the doctor noted down. No, these are the actual times recorded by a government agency. They don't even know what they're doing. This is incredible. I mean, this is truly mind-bending. Now, we are into April of 2016.
Mm-hmm.
It seems that things are now starting to straighten out, but we're starting to wobble in another direction.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, the Earth trying to orient itself, but there is something orbiting around, and that magnetic field is wreaking havoc with our planet. It's pulling our planet all over the place. The proof is right there. Now we're into May of 2016.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop this at a point. Now, take a look where Africa is now. Mm-hmm. Africa is now floating down towards the Antarctic.
Yeah, and don't forget, part of this is normal because
part of it's normal.
Yeah, as we move into summer for the northern hemisphere faces more towards the sun. But the point is, the shift is too much. It's more than 23.5 degrees, which is what we would expect. And that's because we know where the equator is a little bit before that bulge where Africa is wider. a little bit below that. And when we measure where it is with the center of the image, notice it must be more than 23.5 degrees.
Yeah, and then now let me just show you something. Let me get to the point where I want to be here. Let's go back just a little bit here. 1 second. I missed it. Now, this is the point where I wanted to be. Where is South America?
Wow, yeah.
Where is South America? The only thing you can see, here's the state of Florida. Here's the west coast of the United States and Mexico, Central America. Here's the upper tier of South America. Where's the rest of it?
Yeah.
Where did it go? This is insane. And this is June 2016. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, the Earth does shift according to its seasons. But just like Dr. Albers said, when the shift came going into the different equinoxes, it was extreme. And not just by a degree or two. Minimum 10 degrees.
Yeah, and sometimes the angle is too much and sometimes the angle is too little, but we mainly only notice when it's too much. And that's also the problem, because it's not difficult, it's not easy to see, but sometimes from one rotation to another, suddenly Africa moves up and then it moves down again. I've, by watching this, I've seen it a couple of times. You just watch it over and over again and slowly, and you see that there's a sudden shift.
And it wobbles. It wobbles very severely.
There's definitely a wobble. So that's why the angle moves up and down.
Pretty incredible. I mean, we're gonna continue to examine this 1 year of footage because, folks, I think it tells it all. This type of pole shift. It's really not even a pole shift. This is basically our planet tilting on its side. Mm-hmm. You want to call it a pole shift, call it a pole shift. But this is literally, our North Pole or our South Pole, our magnetic field interacting with planet X, reacting with these objects. And folks, I tell you that these objects that we've been finding, they are out there near the sun. Okay, we know that. Their magnetic fields are so strong that they can possibly stretch hundreds of millions of miles. If in fact we are only 93 million miles from the sun, and one of these objects has a very intense magnetic field, which it would have to have, its magnetic field can be 100, 200, 300, 350 million miles. And it would be affecting our planet. So there's nothing else out there that's going to cause our planet to tilt in that fashion. The photograph that you're looking at on your screen right now shows you exactly what has happened. You're looking on the left at August 2015, and on the right, you're looking at July 2016. 1 year later.
Yeah, and that shows that the Earth has wobbled. The landmass of Africa has moved southwards, basically.
And what is now occurring? What is now occurring in South Africa, Doctor?
Yeah, we having in South Africa, it's really the weather has become like I've never seen it before. Don't forget, I grew up in South Africa. Most of my childhood was spent in South Africa. So I know what kind of weather to expect when we move into the rainy season in where I used to live in Johannesburg. And the way the weather used to be when I was a child it was very hot. And then in the afternoon, it gets cloudy and we have a thunderstorm with lightning. There's a bit of rain as the rain starts, and then it pours down, and then it stops and the sun comes out. Okay, this is the weather we're supposed to have in Johannesburg. Nowadays, we're getting floods, and there are tornadoes happening. When I was a child, I was fascinated by geography. I know there were no tornadoes in South Africa. We studied tornadoes as something that happens somewhere else, never here. So the weather patterns have totally changed in Johannesburg. We don't get a proper rainy season even. We get days where it rains all the time like it does in Europe, and then days when it doesn't rain. The temperature goes up one day, the temperature goes down another day. That is not normal. That's not the way we're supposed to have weather in Johannesburg, which means that Johannesburg is not where it's supposed to be anymore.
You know, Doctor, I want to just briefly ask about the video footage that you saw yesterday.
Yeah.
That I showed you that was happening in South Africa. I'm going to see if I actually have that. I don't know if I saved that. I think I did.
Yeah. This is obviously, it's Durban. I know Durban quite well. I've been there many times. And like I said, October, middle of October, maybe where the rain starts in that region of the earth. But I have never seen fissures like this open because of the rain. This fissure looks too deep. And to me, it looks like it's seismic activity related. These fissures do open up when we start getting seismic activity. Now, South Africa has, as a rule, doesn't report on earthquakes like other nations. And the reason for that is because of the mining there. They have some kind of law that allows the mines to hide the fact that they are maybe causing earthquakes. So I know I had some colleagues in the geology department, and they had seismographs, but they were not allowed to put the data online because of the mines. They didn't want people to know about the earthquakes. So it's possible that earthquakes are happening in South Africa, but only the universities will know that they are happening. The public won't really get to know unless the public feels it, and then they have to report it.
Well, we're taking a look at the current earthquake situation around the world right now. And ladies and gentlemen, you know, I mean, we're getting big earthquakes right in the center of the Cascadia fault zone 7 hours ago, magnitude 4.5, and very shallow, 10 kilometers deep. You're seeing a lot of earthquake activity that is getting quite eye-raising here. You're seeing these swarms again, but you dig deep in here. Here's a magnitude 2.53. This is in that Soda Springs area that I've been talking about. All of the earthquakes along here have been removed, but we can go down and we can look at what's happening in Mexico. But look at the state of California, Nevada. I mean, this is all up to date here, folks. You know, you have an earthquake right here, right on the New Madrid fault zone. Deep earthquakes, deep earthquakes. Now, right over here, the earthquake's already been removed. There was a magnitude 6.7.
Yes.
Right here, followed by a few more 6-pointers that have been removed. So just taking a look at the current situation, you know, there were earthquakes up here in the northern tier of Canada. There were earthquakes stretching straight across the United States. There was an earthquake once again in the state of West Virginia, right along the border, the southern part of the state. It's getting intense.
Yes, it is. This is unprecedented kind of increase in the number of stronger earthquakes. I mean, they are not very, very strong. They mid-strength, like 4 magnitude, but there are so many of them, Scott. That's what I mean.
Here's just a quick look at the seismology office down in Mexico. This is the last 3 days. And these are all magnitude 4s, high 3s. You know, you can clearly see the tectonic plates of this planet, ladies and gentlemen. They are literally under a tremendous amount of stress. And anything at any time can happen. And I mean, I'm very, very serious about this. You know, this damn video, this live stream, it's not about views and notoriety, man. This is actually starting to occur. We're finding the evidence. It's right under our noses. Let's just take a look at this. This is going to blow your mind. Here.
Wow.
This is the last 24 hours. This is from the European Seismology Office.
My goodness. Sure.
The last 24 hours.
Yeah, in this one, you can see the ones below Africa, the 6 magnitude ones, Scott.
Magnitude 6.7. And it was only 10 kilometers deep. Look at it. It looks like a bingo card with all of the little red blotters all over it. These are big earthquakes, folks. These are big.
Yeah.
It's very, very concerning. You know, and it's very hard for us now with trying to look at the information. I'm just going to go ahead and pull the SDO up real quick because, ladies and gentlemen, they're manipulating this data now.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's not even on.
Oh my.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I think the sun to me looks extremely irritable right now. It's having all kinds of little filaments erupting all over the place, and it just looks irritable, like it's being affected by all these objects, and there are so many of them that it's just reacting to everything. It's not holding on to its plasma very well, so it's exploding here, exploding there, outgassing here. And then there was a big CME on the 6th. I think there was another one on the 9th.
Yeah, the 5th, 6th,
yeah,
and 9th. But you know, doctor, look at this right here. They've taken a bunch of the cameras offline.
Yes, they probably manipulating them.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't doubt it.
I mean, they're working on them to remove the evidence they don't want us to see. That's what they are doing. You can see the filaments erupting on the right-hand side, on the right edge of the sun there. And, you know, we've shown so many times, that's where these objects seem to be a lot of the time. You found so many of them, Scott. And we've shown these objects over and over again, and we have clear images of the blue-brown dwarf, so we know what these objects actually look like. We know they are solid objects. They are stellar cores. So we know what's going on. These are stars that have aged, and to the point where the core of the star is exposed and we can see it. but they still have high magnetic fields. They're still very dense. They don't melt in the sun's corona. They're absorbing the sun's energy. The sun is still emitting visible light. I know someone asked me the other day, why can we still see the planets? Well, we don't see the planets all the time because we have this hazy chemtrails all the time that sometimes would make it difficult to observe them. But when we do see them, we do. The sun is still emitting visible light. It's also going dark now and then. That's why we have simulators, so we don't see what's actually going on. But it's the light coming off the top of the chromosphere that has dimmed the most. That's what I noticed recently. And that light is ultraviolet light, so we wouldn't detect it anyway. It just shows that the chromosphere, the energy the sun is emitting through the chromosphere has dimmed a lot. The intensity has come right down. And that's the number of photons given off from there. There you are. There is the latest object that you, Scott, found.
You know, and ladies and gentlemen, you know, I showed this this video evidence a couple days ago, and I read a few of the troll comments and saw a few of their stupid videos, and they were saying, "Oh, it was nothing more than a plasma bubble."
Yeah.
You know, I mean, plasma bubbles. I mean, you know, I've never really heard of a plasma bubble. The object's clearly there, and you know,
Yeah.
I had to find this elsewhere because on the original video footage from the SDO, there was a 6-hour period of time that was deleted. Fortunately for myself, I found that 6 hours of time and what is there. And for that 6 hours, that object is right there.
That's
and
right.
it sure as hell isn't popping like a bubble.
Yeah. And you know, the fact that they remove 6 hours of footage, think about it. Why would they remove any footage? It's data. To a scientist, removing data is criminal. And they are doing it on a daily basis. Why? Because they are desperate to hide these things from us. That's the only reason. It's
Exactly.
obvious.
Yeah, the evidence is, you know, the evidence is more than overwhelming. I mean, over the course of the last year, I think that the evidence that has come forth is, you know, it's beyond anybody doubting anything. You know, now I want to just touch on this artificial sun, this sun simulator. I did a video this morning pertaining to some video footage that was sent in to me by 2 subscribers. Absolutely outrageous video footage coming from the ISS, and it is the sun rising, the sun setting, and another subscriber and follower, Gary, did a great job capturing this. I think about a week or 2 ago, sent it in to me. We took some negatives of the photograph. We enhanced it a little bit with ultra high definition to try to bring out the photograph. So this photograph was taken from the ISS by one of the astronauts. And okay, this is supposed to be the sun rising. Okay, what the hell is this? Why would this object have an umbrella looking hexagon object in here? I mean, the object, the round objects, it's kind of flat on top a little bit. So if you're going to tell me that you think that is the sun, then I'm going to have to say politely that you have a few screws loose. These were more definition, high definition photographs that we got of that object. Come on, man. It's time to wake up and realize, folks, that it's not impossible for this to be happening. It's not impossible for the deep state to literally have an object, a massive object, simulating sunlight, magnifying it. All of you have said, look at the sun. You've all said and talked about the way it felt on your skin, the way it looked in the sky, the way it shined on the ground. And now the mounting evidence is staring you right in the face.
Yeah.
And it is truly mind-blowing. And some people may say, oh, you know, I just don't believe it. I just don't believe it. Da, 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 da. Well, listen, you better believe it.
Yeah.
This is the video that was sent in to me not more than 24 hours ago. This was coming from the International Space Station. This is the sun. As they're recording it, I mean, it looks like the disco ball with all of the different colored lights at each point on this video.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that anybody can think that that's the sun. It's like I said from the beginning, there is no way that this thing is the sun. It's just impossible. How can the sun have a dark circle around it? That is not possible, Scott.
Well, doctor, how could the sun produce these spectrums of light?
Exactly. The sun produces visible light. It's all mixed. This is obviously 3 different light sources, one green, one blue, and one red, being mixed together like you do for a holographic projector. You have 3 different projectors, and you mix the three together to produce what seems to be white light, but they're not even correctly mixed. You see, there's blue on the top, green on the left, and red on the bottom.
Now, we were talking some time ago, and we were trying to figure out what spectrum of light do you think is missing? Basically, what color do you think is missing?
It does seem to have less red and more green, but it oscillates as well. You know, sometimes it's more green, sometimes more blue. And obviously the sun is not like that. The sun, we look at it and it's supposed to shine with the same color, always white, which comes from the photosphere. So there's no way that's the sun. But I think this object, what it's not producing is infrared radiation like the sun does. Because the sun is a very hot object and it produces quite a lot of infrared radiation. And on our skin, infrared radiation feels like heat, good heat. But I think this is a bit like fluorescent lights. It produces more ultraviolet light and some visible light.
And where have our ultraviolet readings been for the last year?
Yeah, that's right.
Sky high.
Exactly.
Sky high. 10, 12, 13, 14. They have been up there constantly around the world.
Yeah.
It's truly very eye-opening to watch some of this evidence over the course of the last 72 hours. And again, folks, there has been a tremendous amount that, you know, I just haven't shared in videos because they censor me so bad. You know, I mean, I have over 65, almost 66,000 subscribers, and the only people that are seeing the videos are new subscribers. What happened to the other, 60,000? Do they just get blocked? Are they not seeing it? It doesn't make sense and it doesn't add up. So it exhausts a tremendous amount of effort on my part to find the evidence, produce it so you can see it, but then it never gets to you. Just never gets to you. Ladies and gentlemen, millions of people around the world should be viewing this right now, but they can't. That in itself is a travesty. Now, once again, I got this footage sent in to me by Gary. He's been keeping an eye on the ISS. And once again, you're going to see the sun, whatever it is, come into play.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure debunkers will say, oh, it's just optics. It's this, it's that, it's the atmosphere, it's blah, blah, blah. Folks, we've been seeing this consistently now. And the photographs that I just showed you, the still photographs, they prove beyond any doubt that it's an object, it's a device.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, this is the sun going down. It's being recorded from the International Space Station. Who's recording it? You know, I mean, I find it almost hard to believe that they're allowing this to be seen, unless we have a rogue astronaut, you know, on the space station that's saying, you know, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, when have you seen, and do you remember the sun having 6 spokes?
Exactly. Yeah. It's not supposed to.
And you know, folks, all of the evidence is consistent. It's consistent.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're not going to be looking at, you know, beach cams and webcams anymore. You know, we don't have to. The evidence is right out there, man, in space. It's not on a webcam. It's right there in front of us, man. I mean, look at that.
Wow. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, does that look like did that look like the sun to you?
It looked like a bad movie set, to tell you the truth, Scott.
Yeah, it did.
Bad one.
It did. You know, and we'll go back to this photograph right here.
Yeah.
Here, let me pop this open. Here, let that sink into your eyeballs, people. What do you think? I drew this up in Photoshop? No. I go back here. We can look at the different filters that this was put through. I mean, look at the lines. Perfectly straight lines.
Yeah.
That's a device. Plain and simple. What's
Yeah.
it look like? It looks like an umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the original. Even in the original, you could see this reflector. I think that's what it has to be.
Yeah.
Whew, that picture just blinded me right there. Bright green.
Yes.
Now, I'm going to pull up some quick photographs. Let me find them real quick here. The doctor drew up some specs.
Yes, but I drew them from what you told me you thought it looked like. So you were actually the one who pictured this object in your mind, Scott.
Yeah, this thing is this is what I pictured.
Yes.
And I mean, the doctor did a great job putting this together. And this is the best. I mean, it probably may look different. Who knows? But based on what we're seeing in the photographs,
yeah,
you know, it's some type of a sphere. The power source, me and the doctor, we've struggled with the power source. But again, folks, we don't know exactly what technology they have.
Yeah, they at least 50 years ahead of what they allow us to have. Let's put it that way. Maybe more, maybe 100, 200 years, I'm not sure. But they do have a lot more technology than what we are allowed to see or know about. Let's put it that way.
Now, this power source that we were seeing in the middle that's emanating the light, and there was that reflector. Okay, it's almost like an umbrella, but I'll show you a cross section right up here.
Yeah.
So this is basically so it reflects the light and it illuminates it. And it's almost like there is a camera shutter that they're able to open and close to allow that light to come through.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, we're talking about theories here, but it's working off of what we're seeing, the observations that we're making.
Mm-hmm.
Here would be a top cross section of what we're looking at. And this object can produce light from here, from the top, from here, but not the backside. And there's your illuminated light.
Yeah.
Yeah, folks, I know it may sound far-fetched, but it's not.
Mm. So this explains why it actually produces light that is cone-shaped, not a spherical, symmetric light like the sun or any star would produce. It produces like a flashlight, a cone-shaped light. And so it produces the effects that I'm sure a lot of people have seen, where the sunrise looks like the sun is a flashlight shining up into the sky that turns towards the observer. So it looks elliptical, like on the top right first, and then as the simulator turns towards the observer, it becomes more and more circular in shape. And it can produce these diagonal lines, boundaries in the sky that a lot of us have seen. Because it's like a flashlight. It's not spherical like the sun.
Yeah, and a lot of you have been asking about these rays of the sun when the sun is setting and kind of just went down below the horizon. And then you see these big dark lines emanating from the horizon up through the sky.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're figuring out how that's happening, why that's happening. It's now becoming crystal clear, folks. That was pretty, that was pretty intense to see some of that. And I saw it with my own eyes. Mm. Doctor, you want to explain this one here?
Yeah. So at the minimum size I could get for this object is 300 feet if it does one thing. It's out in orbit, say a little bit above the ISS. But because it's a flashlight, it will shine like it can shine on a screen. And then the size that we would see at where the screen is, which say would be the haze that the chemtrails produce at a certain altitude, say 15 kilometers altitude from the surface. And that would make it the size just right to be about the same size as the sun. If the object has, say, a minimum size of 300 feet. I found it difficult to do the calculation because I didn't know the angle at which the light shines out of it. But it must be a very small angle because if the altitude is 400 kilometers, it must be very small. But I could come up with, say, 300 feet diameter as its minimum diameter. Without the screen mechanism, it would have to be like about 2 miles, something like 2 miles in diameter. Which
it would have to be
huge,
5 times the size.
Yeah. So, this would be the minimum size that would work with the screen kind of mechanism idea. And I think this is possibly why they also need chemtrails, so they can produce that haze at a certain altitude so that the simulator can shine on it and produce the right size sun. So that's what I came up with.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Just going to jump into your report here real quick.
Okay. Right. So this is Planet X and the wobbling Earth.
Yeah, we're going to get back to this wobbling and this shifting of our planet, and it's actually already happened, folks. It's happening right now. You're actually living it right now. Yeah. And you know, Dr. Albers went ahead. She put together a very in-depth report on this, and she's going to go ahead and explain it. Doctor, it's all yours.
Yes, thank you, Scott. So I started out with the usual actual tilt of the Earth, which is 23.5 degrees, and this is what produces the seasons. But obviously, there has been some changes, and that's where the wobble comes in. So if we just move down, I'm sure most people know that this actual tilt is what leads to the seasons, that as the Earth rotates around the sun at the fall and the spring equinox, it's in this position, say, that this would be one of the equinoxes, and there we would see the Earth tilted in this direction. If we were in the L1 position. Okay. And but now we know that it's been reported that there's a 2-degree axial tilt variation. Okay, we've been told about that in recent years, that there's a bit of a wobble. It's only 2 degrees, but I think it's actually a lot more severe than that. It must be a lot more than 2 degrees. There is a website that follows this shift, and so we'll see that in the figure below. There have been some plots of what this tilt is. We can see here it's about, so it should vary between 25.5 and 21.5. I don't think this explains exactly what's happened, and this is just the rotational axis of the Earth. It should have changed by this amount. But I found that they reset the zero from one day to the next, which means that the data then does not actually reflect what the actual tilt is. Because I found that from, if we move down to the image below this, this one image is from July 19th. That's the one on the right. And on the left is the July 16th. And we can see that from between those two, and this is in 2016, they reset the zero tilt position from minus 350 to minus 340. So they just reset it from one day to the next. So from then on, you lose where the tilt was originally. So that tells me this data is not actually very reliable. So
yeah, it's not very accurate. If you're resetting your zero point, you could see they clearly reset that.
That's right. So I think they do that probably, I don't even know when, but I caught them doing it. So that makes it unreliable. So we are left with other ways of looking at it. And let's say we can look at these maps, and these show the temperature anomaly. So by how much the temperature has changed in different parts of the world from the average. And we can see there that the North Pole is lighted up red. And the change in Fahrenheit is about 27 degrees. In centigrade, it's 15. You could see the red color, and you match it to the scale on the side. It's bright red, and that would be 27 degrees difference. And this is from November 17, 2016. And no other region on Earth has such a temperature. And then look at it. This is the purple is where the change is opposite to that. So where the purple is, that's around Siberia, and you can see it's minus 36. So it's much colder than the average. So that shows you already there where the North Pole has moved to, from where the region we call the Arctic is to where Siberia is. It's obvious.
And this distance is not that far.
No, it's not.
Between the two, between the deep purple here, and the red, the distance is not very far.
Yeah. But it changes everything, Scott. It doesn't have to move that far for it to actually make all land masses like the North America to move southwards towards the equator, you see?
Absolutely.
And makes everything hotter. So, and that was November. And then in February of 2017, again, we see the same thing. The North Pole here is much, much hotter. So in between, it cooled down again. So that indicates a sort of a wobble. You know, it moves this way and then moves that way. But again, it's bright red there, the North Pole. And if we look down at the scales, it says the Arctic is 4.7 degrees centigrade above average. And the Antarctic is only 1.22. So the Antarctic was closer to the average temperature. It was summer in the Antarctic anyway at the time. So this was February 10th, 2017. This was the state of affairs then.
And that wasn't too long ago.
No, that was just a few months ago. So then here I explain what has to happen in order for, at the time, the North Pole to, this would be the geographic North Pole is indicated there in the left Earth blue globe, which represents the Earth. And in order for it to be warmer there, the Arctic region, which is that black dot, would have to move closer to the vertical line, which would show the perpendicular line to the ecliptic. Okay, so that angle would have to decrease. It's like decreasing the actual tilt of the Earth in that case. And then all land masses to the left would have to move closer to the equator. That's what would have to happen. So that was that the beginning of 2017. Then in March, what happened was the Antarctic also warmed up. And March is like the beginning of winter for the Antarctic. So that was only like a couple of weeks later, the Antarctic recorded very high temperatures. So again, that would show that the Antarctic, because this would be the new position then for winter in the Antarctic, would also have to move closer to the orbital axis, so the line perpendicular to the ecliptic. So again, we would have that happening. And that would also mean that the northern hemisphere lands would have to move closer to the equator.
Yeah, I remember the reports came out on that.
Yeah.
Now the Antarctic heating up.
Yeah. So this diagram usually shows what most people think is happening to the Earth. And that is that it's more on its side. Okay. So it would mean that the orbital axis changes from 23.5 to 43 degrees. So the Earth is on its side. But what that would cause is that summer would be hotter in the Arctic and winter would be a lot colder. So here you see the southern hemisphere. The Antarctic is at the axis of rotation. So at the end of the red line, and it would be further away from where the sun is shining, so it would be colder in winter. But that's not what we are experiencing. We are experiencing.
That's not what we saw either. This is not what we saw on the satellite footage.
Exactly. That's not what we saw. We're actually seeing something different, which my next diagram indicates. Okay, so if we move down, I show, oh yes, this one shows where the magnetic axis are, where the magnetic axis is in relation to the rotational axis. So there's a 10-degree difference between the two. And I think what the Earth does is it always keeps them at 10 degrees. So if the North Pole changes, moves towards Siberia, the rotational axis would move with it so that this angle stays the same. So that's what I think is happening. Then, so we move down to the next diagram. This is where I actually
trying to compensate. The Earth is literally trying to compensate for the movement.
Exactly. So this, on the left-hand side, we see, okay, the blue point is where some point in North America would be, and the green point is where somewhere in Siberia would be. And the black line indicates the North Pole on the Earth's rotational axis, and there's the 23.5 degrees to the vertical line, which indicates where the ecliptic is. It's at 90 degrees to that. So now what has happened is the rotational axis pole has moved, or the magnetic pole has moved towards Siberia, which causes the rotational North Pole to also move towards Siberia. But the Earth then rights itself, so it's in the same position as the old geographic North Pole is. And that causes all the land masses to, on the left-hand side, to shift downwards, and all the land masses on the right of that to shift upwards. And that's what's then causing both poles, both the geographic North Pole and the geographic South Pole, the new ones, to both get more sunlight, because it's as if those points have come more into the right up position, so they will both get more sunlight in winter and in summer. I mean, they won't get quite as much in summer, but they will definitely get more sunlight in winter.
Yeah, incredible evidence. I mean, it's definitely exactly what we saw in the video from the satellite footage.
Yes.
We now know which way the Earth is tilting.
Yes.
In this this event that it's going through.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very hard for us to judge this. You're not actually going to feel this unless there is a very, very abrupt shift that would either be a pole shift or the crustal displacement, the crustal shift itself. So one of two scenarios can happen. The actual crustal shift, well, that can happen in a matter of minutes or hours.
Yes.
And that would be the most violent thing that you would ever go through in your life. And it would last for hours and hours and hours and hours. And there would not be a human soul on this planet that would not know this is happening.
That's right. Yeah, because Scott, this is happening because the crust is still fused to the core. So as the poles shift, the crust has to shift with the Earth to compensate. But once the outer core warms up enough, then the mantle will lose contact with the core and it will float freely. And it will end up in a totally different orientation to what it is now.
And that we don't even know.
We don't know. So here I just explained things about Siberia and how it had this huge, during the winter, it had temperatures that usually are only experienced in the Arctic, like minus 58 degrees Fahrenheit, and people were not coping with the cold, and people were dying and experiencing severe frostbite. And this was January 21st, 2017, which shows that Siberia has moved to where the pole, the North Pole used to be.
I mean, geographically.
Yes,
geographically. We're not talking about, the magnetic pole shift. We're talking about geographically, this landmass is now, where the North Pole, the coldest region on this planet, is minus 60 degrees Fahrenheit. I mean, I remember the stories coming out about what was happening to the people up there.
Mm-hmm.
The Russian government actually, they literally tried to help these people by getting them out of there, bringing them further south, what they thought was south,
Yeah, there's a good reason why people don't live at the North Pole. It's because in winter, the temperatures are horrendously cold. So now we have the North Pole being at a place where people used to live, and they just cannot cope with the winter. That's to be expected, of course.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, so this is my explaining what's actually happening is that we have these extra stars in the solar system. They have high magnetic fields. They are inducing currents, and they are inducing currents in the planets in the solar system, including the Earth, and they are warming up their cores. But these stellar cores are rejuvenating. More and more of them have rejuvenated. They then go into orbit around the sun. And as they move into orbit, they move a little bit away from the sun, so they move closer to the planets. And so as they move around in their orbit, there will become a time when they come closer to the Earth, and then the effect will be more dramatic. So we'll get more induced currents, so the core warms up even more. We get more earthquakes because these currents create earthquakes inside the core of the Earth. So they have the dual effect of creating earthquakes and warming up the magma in the outer core. So the magma gets less and less thick, so it gets more liquid, and then eventually the effect will get so strong that the mantle will no longer be fused to the solid core at the center, and it will float freely and change positions. I think that's what the pole shift will be.
Yeah, absolutely. And ladies and gentlemen, a good way to think about this is just think about wax on a candle. It's a solid mass, and I'm talking about the interior of the Earth. So, this interior, it's kind of like wax now. It's in a semi-solid state. Well, what happens whenever you heat wax? You basically liquefy it. So we're talking about the Earth that has a solid core, as they say, and this kind of waxy outer core, which would be, the mantle, and it's all being heated. And if that mantle becomes even more liquefied, the Earth's crust will literally start to break free. If you start to break free, you're going to have massive tectonic plate shifts that will blow your mind, that would just have to be called biblical.
Yeah, cataclysmic, definitely, Scott. Yeah, you're right.
I mean, it has already been shown by deep science and geology that at one point in time, the Earth, all of the continents were together. We've all seen that video and how they've broken apart and they've moved their own separate ways. And some have submerged under the oceans. And we've all seen all of that. Well, folks, that is probably all pretty damn true. And then once again, now our planet is being faced with the very, very high possibilities of something like this happening within your lifetime. If I had the actual time, I would tell everybody on this planet. But I don't know the exact time. But I can tell you this much, folks. The evidence is mounting, and it's not in our favor. It is not. If you just take a look at the psyops, the psychological operations that are being conducted worldwide in multiple governments, in different countries, and there are some of us that are seeing through it, and some of us that are not. The bad part is it's being done. Now people are losing their lives. But we as a people have to be very, very careful. It's okay to examine the information and get out there and prove that this was a lie. But you better maintain a lot of your attention on what is happening right underneath your 2 feet. Because if you don't, and you're not prepared, you're going to regret it. You're definitely going to regret it. So let's be very careful about getting caught up in the mainstream media. Let's be very careful about our attention being diverted elsewhere, basically into a pool of drama. And that's what has occurred. We're moving from one conspiracy to another. Now we're into Hollywood and Harry Weinstein. It's bad enough now that California is on fire and having substantial earthquakes. Seismic activity that, when I analyze it, it worries me. Yeah. We're seeing seismic activity stretching across the United States. We're starting to see sporadic seismic activity right in New Madrid, right in the town called New Madrid. There was an earthquake there today. And folks, what happened in New Madrid in the late 1800s was catastrophic. It went on for months. I think 5 or 6 months. And this is back in the heyday when the population was minuscule. Now the population is overwhelming, with several big cities right in the center of the bullseye. And when that bell rung in New Madrid in the late 1800s, that bell rung all the way to the streets of New York City, all the way to the shores of the East Coast. We really need to, put our attention on what is really happening, and not a soap opera. It's very scary what's happening. Doctor, do you have another program running in the back? I could hear an echo.
No, I don't, actually.
Well, let me see if I do.
No.
Might be listening to my own mouth. I could hear an echo. Maybe not. No, I could still hear it. Am I echoing?
No, I hear you perfectly. Can you? I
It,
hear you. I don't hear any echo.
it just might be the
Yeah,
the live feed.
maybe.
Okay, you want to go ahead right back into your report?
Yes, Scott. And I just wanted to mention that I remember that you made a video about what happened in New Madrid. And I remember that the Mississippi flowed backwards. Wasn't that right?
That's correct. The Mississippi River flowed backwards because there were massive upheavals of land. And we are already seeing big issues on the Mississippi River. People are saying that it's running dry. The water is disappearing. Does it have to do with drought? Well, folks, if you go back and you research the information on what actually happened in New Madrid back in the late 1800s, the land upheaval, water disappeared, man. The Mississippi River flowed backwards all the way to the Great Lakes.
Yeah.
They had gases and sand blowouts for 6 months, terrifying these people. Just imagine now with major cities. All of the signs are there, folks, and the distractions are mounting. And you wouldn't believe the people involved. It's like a Sunday night movie, but it's actually happening. So we all have to stay on point. Listen, none of us are going to solve any of the false flags, no matter how much information and evidence we come up with. It's just not going to happen. So you diverting all of your attention to the false flags is what is meant to happen. That is the mind control. And if you want your mind controlled like that, like I said in my other video, walk into a FEMA camp, turn your wrist over, and take the chip. And realize that you're never coming back. Or you can stand up like tough people, like the tough human race that we are, and we can stand up and not accept this nonsense, because we are already in a deep enough state of emergency with what is happening to the planet. What happened in Las Vegas happened. But ladies and gentlemen, without the earth, none of us exist. If Las Vegas disappeared today, all of us would exist. But if something happens to this planet that we are already seeing, it doesn't matter what is out west. None of us will be alive. That's just a fact. A fact that each and every one of us better wake up to, like today. All of the signs are here right now. I'm not fear-mongering, whatever. I'm telling you like it is. We have shown more than enough evidence to prove these things beyond a shadow of a doubt. I don't care what anyone says. We will continue to search for the evidence. There's no doubt about that. But one of the main reasons for this live stream here today, yeah, it's truly an awakening. It's time to sit people down and say, listen, man, do you realize what is happening? Get your head out of the sand, and it's time to start spreading the word. And one more thing. I harped on this all of last week, and I'm going to mention it just one more time. Please, ladies and gentlemen, the videos that you guys are watching that all have to do with Nibiru and, you know, these things that people are taking photographs in the sky and portraying as planets when they're street lamps or just complete nonsense. Listen, don't waste your time with it. It's just a waste of your time, and it's subjecting you to more mind control of disinformation, overflowing your brain and your mind once again with pure nonsense. I watched a few videos the other day, not going to mention any names. They were absolutely ludicrous. And people were sending me the links to these videos and saying, look, Nibiru's in the sky over Rome, Italy. You know, so curiously, I go and I look at the video and I'm like, oh my dear God. It was nothing more than a street lamp. That's why over the year, I have not even bothered following any of these webcams. Because the real information, ladies and gentlemen, is in the deep science, in the deep observations. It's not going to come from a webcam in a plaza in Rome. It's just not going to happen. I realize that. I want all of you to realize that. You know, over the course of the last 6 months, I've noticed that a lot of you, the viewers, you have learned a lot. You have learned how to go and analyze real data from the SDO, from the stereo, from the SETI, from NOAA, from NASA. You have learned a tremendous amount in a short amount of time. So now each and every one of you is no longer just a subscriber to a damn YouTube channel. You guys are actually investigating and researching and understanding what's happening, and you're understanding the data. And I hope that the doctor and I were good enough teachers for all of you to understand all of this, because we also had to learn. And Dr. Albers is a very, very smart, intelligent woman.
Thank you, Scott.
You're welcome. You earned it.
Well, so are you.
Thank you. But, you know, whenever she gives her commentary, folks, and she writes her reports, you know, you're dealing with a woman who has a 17-year career lecturing at a major university. Okay, she's not just somebody off the shelf. She has 2 master's degrees, a doctorate. She knows what she's talking about. First and foremost, she is a Christian. She's not going to lie to you. She's not going to embellish things just to scare you. She actually worries about how she explains things so she doesn't scare you to death. But ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be moving past that point where we don't have time for deep fear. I've expressed over and over and over again, knowledge is power. And that's what we need. We need to know what is happening, when it's happening, and where it's happening. We cannot fall prey to the soap operas that are going to continue to occur worldwide, coming to a city near you. Let's just hope and pray that none of us are victims of it. But the possibilities are high, and they're getting higher, and the stakes are getting bigger. And so are the players. The gentleman that I spoke about in the beginning of this video, the one that works at the private part of the airport in Vegas, he quit his job. He took his wife and their newborn, and I'm not going to tell you where he moved back to. 48 hours later, he was so scared about what he saw, he literally rented a Ryder truck, packed up their apartment, and they moved back to where they were from. He quit his job. He expressed in the email, he's like, oh, Scott, I've been doing this for a long time. He has degrees in aeronautics. It's not like he can't go get a job somewhere else. He was that scared of what he witnessed at that airport in those private jet hangars for a month. And then, in the blink of an eye, boom. He heard it. So, folks, we know what happened there. We'll never be able to dig up all of the truth. And even if we do, nobody listens, and we can't do anything about it. Did we do anything about 9/11? No. Did we do anything about the Boston episode? No. Did we ever do anything about Sandy Hook? No. So what makes you think that we're going to do anything about what just occurred in Sin City? They're all distractions. Very sophisticated, but they do slip up quite a bit. And they think that we're pretty stupid, but we're not. A lot of us stopped ingesting all that fluoride. You know what I mean? It's because of people like me and like Dr. Albers and many others that a lot of you are now awake. And your brain is on overdrive. And why? You're thriving for more information because you are now truly awakened. But we have to be able to discern what is nonsense and a waste of time and what is real. The doctor and I, we haven't been doing a lot of live streams and, maybe making one video a day when there is a ton. I could put up 5 or 6 or 8 or 9, 10 videos a day on what I'm observing. But folks, they censor the hell out of me. And I hate to say this, but it's almost not worth my time because it's exhausting and frustrating. And at the same time, a lot of it's mind-bending and it's hard to believe. So I beg all of you to get on point, today. There is too much going on for us to be worried about the NFL kneeling during the national anthem. We don't have time to worry about Jason Aldean. We don't have time to worry about these superficial things. We don't have time to worry about Harry Weinstein. We don't have time to worry about what Donald Trump's doing. We need to pay attention to our planet. Because without our planet, everything that I just mentioned doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. So a lot of you have families and you have children, young, maybe adult. You know, don't you want to be able to go on and enjoy the rest of this life? Whatever's left. An hour, a day, a week, a month, a year, 10 years, 20. It's getting pretty rough, folks. I'm actually worried. And for one of the first times, I'm going to just come right out and say it. I don't know what to do. I'm literally scared. I'm scared at some of the information that I've uncovered in the course of the last 72 hours. I'm worried. I almost decided this morning to completely walk away once again, you know, from YouTube and concentrate on myself. I sat for a couple of hours actually thinking about this very, very early this morning. Most of you know that I maintain some pretty long hours. But as I sat today, I thought to myself, you know, why am I being selfish? I've never been a selfish person ever in my life. So walking away from all of the people that rely on the information, that are interested in the information that we provide, well, that kind of got to me. And then I thought to myself, only a coward would walk away and think about himself. That really hit home, ladies and gentlemen. That hit me right in the heart. Because I'm not a coward. Never have been. Always been the person to try my best to stand up for what is right. Never been an ass kisser. Never will be. But I will admit for the first time here today that after what I've seen, I'm truly scared. I'm worried. You know, ladies and gentlemen, we only get bits and pieces of what's actually happening around the world. Horrifying situations occurring in parts of southern Mexico, Central America, different countries in South America. Norway just went under some vicious flooding. All of the parts of Indonesia, parts of China, India, the Middle East, parts of Europe. Things are getting extreme everywhere. We may not see all of it, but it's truly happening. It's wicked. It's truly becoming terrifying. Dr. Albers, what do you think?
Well, Scott, I know that you're a very courageous person to have gone on fighting for as long as you have, and have had the kind of battles that you've had to fight in your life to continue. So, I'd like to thank you and honor you for doing that. I haven't been doing it for as long, but, I do understand that the battles can be huge now and then, because I've had one myself. So, I think we are in very dangerous times, Scott. And so that's why I usually say to people that they should look to their spiritual lives, because that's where you're going to get strength. Eventually the battle gets so huge that your own human strength is not enough and you need help. So that's why I usually say, turn to God and get to know him, because I believe he can help you.
Yeah, in the end, that's all that we're going to have, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
The materialistic things, the house, the car, the money, all of that, it's nothing.
Yeah.
So, in the end, the doctor's right. In the end, the only thing that we truly have left is our spiritual side, our faith.
Mm-hmm.
And as I've said before, whatever God you want to believe in, then that is where your faith needs to lie. But also, you as a man, as a woman, you all need to prepare yourselves in whatever way you think you need to. We are looking at very drastic things happening. And as far as a timeline goes, many people have been asking me about that. I don't have a timeline, ladies and gentlemen, but if you just take a look at, basic observations, and you listen to the reports and you watch the videos and you see what we are finding, then that right there shows you that things are getting
Scott,
bleak.
and do you know what started happening in August? This picture shows you exactly what started happening. At least this is when the reports reached us, that the oceans were receding from the coastline in Brazil. And I think this means that there has been an acceleration of what is happening to our planet since then. So this was in August 12th. As you can see, this is an empty beach that's supposed to be covered by ocean waves. And so you see that the ocean receded. And this means that the wobble has increased, that the Earth is wobbling more than ever right now.
Absolutely. And ladies and gentlemen, do you remember hearing about this in 2015? Did you hear about this in 2016? No, you didn't, because I was all over it, researching everything around the world. And here we are now in August of 2017, and we're seeing these massive recessions of water. And there was no hurricane here in Brazil or Uruguay when this occurred.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And then on the other side of South America, on the west coast, we had these huge waves coming in. In other words, we're starting to see the ocean invade land. And this means that it's the opposite of the recession that we saw on the opposite coast. And that indicated to me how the Earth was wobbling at that time to cause this kind of thing. And I drew a diagram, which is lower down, to explain how the wobble was happening. And it has to do with the fact that the Earth bulges at the equator. And, this can be explained in different ways. To me, it's to do with the Earth's magnetic field. The magnetic field is not as strong at the equator, or it can be explained in terms of the rotation of the Earth. It doesn't matter how you explain it. The fact is the Earth bulges at the equator, and I've drawn there the bulge. And then I drew this diagram to explain it as simply as possible. And this diagram is based on the Earth's equator. So I left the equator as a straight horizontal line, and I allowed the Earth to rotate and the bulges then to move so that they were on either side of the equator. So on the left-hand side, we have the old equator, and we see the bulges on either side. And then that ellipse represents South America, and you have on the right-hand side is Brazil, and on the left-hand side is Chile. Then what we do is, what would cause Brazil to experience a recession of the ocean? It would have to move away from the equator. So if the new equator on the right-hand image is the yellow one, and the Earth is then moved, so that's the new equator, which is the new horizontal line, and it's yellow. So then, as you can see, South America would rotate. And as it rotates, the black dot, which represents Brazil, moves further away from the equator. So it would experience less of the bulge, of the new bulge, because the bulge would move upwards on that side to coincide with where the yellow line is. So then Brazil would move further down. So then the ocean would recede from the coastline there. And Chile, on the other side, on the left-hand side, would move closer to the new equator. So it would experience a higher bulge. So then the ocean would start to invade there. Now, this probably didn't last long, only for a few hours, and then the Earth possibly went to another orientation. But the fact that these things are starting to be noticeable means that the wobble is greater than usual, I think. So then what I needed to explain, because this is not drawn in the same way as the figures where I showed the Earth rotate. There I used the ecliptic as my line of reference. So what I did was, once I explained it this way, because here it's all related to the equator. Okay, so in the lower diagram, I then drew these two diagrams in reference to the ecliptic again, the vertical line or the orbital axis. So if we move down, Scott, then you can see that it's exactly the same thing that's been happening all the time. So now, on the left-hand side, the image is rotated, so it's in relation to the ecliptic. So now the red line on the left image is the equator. And the purple line is the ecliptic plane. And then the perpendicular line to that is the orbital axis, which is at 23.5 degrees. Okay, and the vertical line will be the rotational axis. Then on the right-hand side, I show what would happen to the same image, but also drawn in terms of the ecliptic. So we still have the purple line. The ecliptic is horizontal. The orbital axis is vertical. And the yellow line is the new equator. But as you can see, it's now at the position where the angle between the old the equator and the ecliptic has to decrease. Okay, so you can see that on the top. The rotational axis and the orbital axis, that angle has to decrease in order for this to be possible. So that again shows the same thing, that the lands to on the left hand side have to rotate further south, so towards the yellow line it has to rotate further south, so the United States would move closer to where the equator or the old equator would be, and the lands on the other side, Siberia, would move towards the top, towards where the new North Pole would be. Okay, so basically it shows that it's the same thing, it's just worse. A worse wobble has occurred in order for this to happen and be noticeable.
The people in Siberia who wish for a tropical paradise aren't going to see one anytime soon, are they?
No, I don't think so. It is possible that once the complete shift happens, that Siberia is in a different position. This is what happens whilst the crust is still fused to the core and they move with each other. Once that is not there, all bets are off as what is actually going to end up happening, where the crust is going to end up, Scott.
You know, I just had a pretty mind-blowing thought.
Mm-hmm.
With this intense wobbling that we've been going through, and now we've been able to document it from 2015, 2016, and it's actually occurring here now in 2017. The thought just came to my mind, with this type of action, do you think that this could be one of the leading factors into all of these large ice shelf fractures in the poles? Because if you're moving the planet around these, I mean, it may take a little while, but we have seen some pretty massive ice shelves in the Antarctic break off, and we've seen quite a bit of ice disappearing in the North Pole. And I think the number was 6 or 7 times the amount of icebergs that have broken loose and had flowed all the way down to Newfoundland, mm-hmm. because they keep track of it for the shipping lanes.
That's right.
So I'm just thinking that this intense wobble, this may be a factor in fracturing these ice shelves.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely correct, Scott, that because it's warming up so much at the Arctic and the Antarctic, that the ice starts to melt. And I think the ocean on top of it, because we have two effects going on. We have the warming up of the interior of the Earth, and we have the wobble. And the warming up of the interior of the Earth and the currents in the interior causes the earthquakes to increase, but not only earthquakes, also volcanic eruptions. A lot of the volcanoes are on the bottom of the ocean, on the seafloor. And when these volcanoes erupt, they warm up the oceans. So when the oceans warm up, then it causes the ice to start melting from the bottom. And so we have these effects as well going on in the Arctic oceans. They're warming up substantially from the top and the bottom because they're getting more sunlight and the ocean is warming up. So then this is what happens. And if the maps nowadays show a greater increase in the in the temperature, which has departed from average at the Arctic and the Antarctic than anywhere else in the world. So the temperatures at the Arctic and the Antarctic, I don't even call them the North Pole and the South Pole, because I don't think the poles are quite there anymore. But these regions on Earth have warmed up more than anywhere else on Earth.
Now, just talking about, weather back and forth, now that you've been in the United States, you've been in the Northeast now for several months. Now you yourself, you are now actually witnessing very extreme changes. One day, couple of days, 95 degrees, then 25-degree drop, then a 25-degree increase, then a 25-degree drop. And ladies and gentlemen, I grew up in the Northeast. These aren't correct weather patterns. This isn't normal. I mean, it's just completely abnormal. Mm-hmm. And it's very startling when your mind is awakened to what is actually happening. And it's gone from being semi-noticeable to extremely noticeable. And when things reach that extreme level, well, that's time to be alerted. That is a major warning sign for me. Now, Doctor, with your report here, and by the way, this was an absolutely fantastic report. You're going to go ahead and make this report into one of your videos for your channel, correct?
Yes, I definitely will do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Put this up there so everybody can get an opportunity to view your report. And again, ladies and gentlemen, any of the reports that are on Dr. Albers' YouTube channel, if you wanted to purchase any of the reports in a PDF file, it's a $10 charge. You get the rights to the report, and you can do your own videos like a lot of other people are doing. And they're using scientific information from a professional, from a scientist, from a physicist, based on observations. And if you want to make YouTube videos, don't make YouTube videos of, just lens flares and weird photographs of the sun. Get out there and use some real scientific information. Put the article up on a screen share, either live stream it or, screen capture it and produce it into a video. And people will start watching you. They'll start listening, because I'm telling you, again, they are censoring the living hell out of my channel and the doctors. Okay, so providing a network is what we'd like to try to do. We've been trying to do it. So all you have to do is click on the PayPal link in the description box out of any of the videos. Whatever videos you want, leave the name of them from Dr. Albers' videos. Hey, I want this one, I want that one. And they're emailed to you in about 24 hours. And you can put it up on the screen. You can read through it. You can explain it, just as we're doing right here. And start trying to get the word out. And people will listen to you. They just need something to look at. They need a voice to tell them about it. And that voice is yours. So if you want to participate, any of the videos, any of them, just click on the PayPal link and include your email address in the PayPal transaction and the report that you want. And the information will be emailed to you in a PDF file in 24 hours. Doctor, in conclusion, in your article here.
Yeah, so in conclusion, I say that these telecores, which I've written about a lot, have, I believe, come in or have been shown the way by the Planet X system, which is now here. And I like to mention Dr. Harrington, who basically lost his life because he found the system coming in. And, these objects have high magnetic fields. They are affecting the sun. The sun is affecting the earth, and these objects are also directly affecting the earth. And this is causing this drift in the poles of the earth, and it's causing the earth to try and compensate, to put itself in the right position. So this is causing all this upheaval and possibly will lead to the pole shift.
Yeah, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. That's what I'm extremely. I mean, that really, for the first time today, you know, that really woke me up after viewing that information over the last couple of days that we picked up from the Epic spacecraft. That truly showed me beyond a shadow of a doubt that this shift and this wobble is so intense. And I've been looking and looking and looking for this evidence for, my goodness, over a year now. And finally, it's here. And we see what's happening. You know, and I just want to reiterate one more time, folks. You know, it's time for all of us, the entire world, to now wake up and understand what is happening. Help us help you. Continue with your observations. Continue with your individual investigations and your research, and sharing the information and getting it out there is what needs to be done. Yes, we are facing the deep state. Each and every one of you that live in the United States, you're now living in a police state. And the same goes for all of you in other countries. You all saw what just happened in Catalonia, in Spain. It's happened in the UK. It's happened in many countries. And before you know it, it's coming to your neighborhood. Because there is so much to cover up. There is so much to take control of. The deep state lives in fear, the same as we are now living in fear. They fear our knowledge. They fear our unity. We fear the possibilities of just all hell breaking loose, being captive. Mind control is already being used on all of us. We must learn how to distinguish between what is real and what is not. And even in the parts that aren't real, understand that they're using human targets now, and people are losing their lives. So they've kicked it up a notch. Therefore, we have to kick it up a notch. That's just a fact. Like I said, folks, if you want to bow down to the deep state, you go right ahead. Find yourself a FEMA camp, pack it up, walk through the gates, turn your wrist over, take the chip, and we'll see you. If you want to stand up for the human race, stand up for mankind, then you get up off your rear end and you do the best you can to get the information to everyone. I know a lot of you tell me that people think that you're crazy. Well, ladies and gentlemen, those will be the people lined up in front of the FEMA camps, and it will be unfortunate. We have already seen the weather warfare manipulation with the hurricanes. It may not be over. Now we have something very suspicious occurring in California with these fires. What's next? Keep your eyes and your ears wide open. But first and foremost, ladies and gentlemen, please do not fall prey to, I hate to use the terminology, but that fake news, because there's a whole bunch of it online, and the majority of it is controlled and put out there by the deep state. They're the ones putting it out there, not some pimply faced kid with a journalism background that wants to make up fake news on his blog from his mother's basement. These are well-trained people. Mind control. They may not be able to inject you with a drug to gain this mind control, but they do know how to use the power of social media and the internet. They know how to use technology. Hell, they invented it. Ain't that right, Doctor?
That's right, Scott. Yeah.
Well, listen, go ahead, Doctor. I'm sorry.
So I wanted to say that the deep state is afraid of one thing, and that is of people having ethical values, a moral compass. And I know, Scott, that that's what you have. You have decided, you have made your line in the sand and said, this is what I believe in, and I am going to do what I believe in and do what God has told me to do no matter what. And that's what the deep state is afraid of, and that's why they fight you. Because when you have moral values, when you are able to make a line in the sand and say, I'm going to do what is right, then you can think clearly, you can make decisions. If you don't have a moral compass, you will sway all over the place. And one day you believe this, and the next day you won't believe it. It's only when you can draw a line in the sand and you can say, I am ready to give my life for what is right. And you will not budge from that. And you can give your life in two ways. You can give your life by allowing yourself to be killed because of what you believe in, or you can give your life with your daily life. In other words, every single day you get up and you do the right thing because that's what you believe in. And that's more difficult than just, okay, that's it. I give up my life and that's it. It's over. Your life is over. That is actually more difficult. And it's absolutely biblical to do that. God says to choose what is right. And then he will help us to continue to do what is right. So I just wanted to mention that. God says, seek the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. Everything that we really want. Do we want peace? Do we want provision? We have to put the spiritual first. Choose the right spiritually, and then God, because he exists and he's the creator, will help us with the rest. And that's what I wanted to say.
Very well put. I'm glad you brought up the morals and values, and we talked about that this morning. And ladies and gentlemen, I know each and every one of you have your own morals and you have your values. And this is something that we will be falling back on. Doing what is right. Standing up for each other is it's just right. You know, like I said before, it's going to come down to the time where, regardless of your religious background and beliefs, your skin color, it doesn't matter. We're all human. We're the targets. They have deemed us to be disposed of. And these are the times that we're living in. So we must stay steadfast, on point, for the most important information out there. And the most important information out there, ladies and gentlemen, is not the Las Vegas shooting. It's what's happening to our planet. Because as I've said before, without this planet, Las Vegas doesn't exist. You don't exist. So once again, that's the message. That's the information that we've been working on for the last several days. And it is critical. We've covered a lot here in this live stream. For all of you that maybe have missed parts of it, it will be available on my YouTube channel. And I'll post it on the Planet X News Facebook page and Twitter. And the link will be available for you to come back and watch everything in its entirety at a later time if need be. Once again, I ask that you share the video. Share the videos on YouTube with your friends and your family members and try to help them understand it. I mean, it's truly our responsibility. If you're watching the video and you're following this YouTube channel and Dr. Albers, then it's your responsibility. You've stepped up to the plate. It's time to put the big boy panties on, in the big girl panties on, and step up. If not, then just cower down. Be taken over. But it ain't happening to me. That's for damn sure. I'd like to take this time to thank my moderators here during this live stream. I know it's been a while since we've actually had a live stream. We're going to continue on, trying to find as much evidence as we possibly can. I'd like to thank Dr. Albers for being with us here this morning and into this early afternoon. And ladies and gentlemen, just keep on doing what you're doing. Just take a minute sometimes to sit back and really discern, what is real and what is not. What's worth your time and what isn't. Because now, each and every one of you, you're now a warrior. You are now a warrior in this battle. And that is what it's going to become. It's scary. Makes you wonder. I do a lot of that. I think every day. I think every single day. But I continue, and Dr. Albers will continue. And again, each and every one of you, you just keep on doing what you're doing. But you make sure that you have everything in order. You make sure that you have somewhat of a preparedness plan. Whatever you need to do, you get it done. And once again, Dr. Albers, I'd like to thank you for being on with us.
Thank you, Scott.
This late morning and this early afternoon. And I know it's been quite a long live stream, but there was a lot of information that needed to get out there, folks. If you're not subscribed to the Planet X News Facebook page, get in the description box and get over there and start following the Facebook page. A lot of information goes up there on a daily basis, and it's a little bit easier for you to keep track of it. This is Scott from Planet X News and Dr. Albers, our Planet X physicist. We'd both like to thank each and every one of you for spending this time with us. Take care.